An Iranian ship ignored 6 hours of warnings. So the U.S. Navy put a shell through its engine room at 2 in the morning. Marines landed on the deck before the crew could respond. And now, 72 hours remain before a ceasefire expires, and nobody knows what comes next. This was not a warning. This was the United States telling the world the rules just changed. April 19th, middle of the night, Gulf of Oman. The USS Spruance had been broadcasting the same warning for 6 straight hours. Every few minutes, the same words cutting through the radio silence. Motor vessel Tuska, vacate your engine room. We are prepared to subject you to disabling fire. The Tuska did not turn around, so the Spruance fired its 5-inch naval gun. One direct hit. 275 meters of Iranian steel went silent in the water. Within minutes, U.S. Marines fast-roped from MH-60 Seahawk helicopters onto the deck. The United States had just seized an Iranian vessel for the first time in this conflict. And the entire thing was filmed. CENTCOM released the footage themselves, deliberately, methodically, because Washington wanted every capital on earth to see exactly what just happened. If you want to follow this story as it develops, and it is moving fast, subscribe to America Wire right now and turn on notifications. We cover this every single day with the depth it deserves. To understand why April 19th happened, you need to go back exactly 48 hours, April 17th. For one brief morning, the tension dropped. Iran announced that the Strait of Hormuz, the 33-kilometer choke point through which 20% of the world's daily oil supply moves, was open. Tankers could pass. Cargo ships could move. Oil markets exhaled. Brent crude fell toward its lowest point in weeks. Diplomats in Washington and Islamabad used words like progress. It lasted 24 hours. On April 18th, Iran reversed the decision. The regime cited American breaches of trust, specifically Washington's refusal to lift its naval blockade. And this time, Iran didn't just announce the closure. The IRGC enforced it with gunfire. 20 commercial ships abruptly changed course toward Oman in a panic. At least 3 oil tankers were targeted by IRGC fast attack boats inside the strait. But the single moment that chilled the entire maritime world happened to one specific ship, the Sanmar Herald, a massive Suezmax-class Indian tanker, 2 million barrels of Iraqi crude oil on board. The captain had done everything correctly. He had obtained Iranian clearance. His name was on their list. He had permission to pass. Then the IRGC opened fire anyway. What was captured from the ship's bridge radio that morning is difficult to hear. The captain's voice, desperate, disbelieving, broadcast across the open maritime channel. Sea Navy, Sea Navy. This is Mongistan. You gave me clearance to go. My name is second on your list. You gave me clearance to go. You are firing now. Let me turn back. No response came. No warning. No challenge. The firing simply stopped. The Sanmar Herald limped toward Omani waters. In that same operational window, a container ship was hit by stray rounds. 3 commercial vessels targeted. 1 operational window. The global shipping industry watched in real time and understood exactly what Iran was willing to do with 20% of the world's oil supply. The U.S. military response that was already in place by this point is worth pausing on, because the scale of it changes the entire calculation. 2 full aircraft carrier strike groups are now positioned in the same basin. The USS Gerald R. Ford, the largest warship on Earth, returned to the region via the Red Sea with 90 combat aircraft and 2 destroyer escorts. Alongside it, the USS Abraham Lincoln established a second carrier strike group, 2 carriers, same waters, simultaneously. That does not happen without a very deliberate message being sent. Behind the carriers came the destroyers, USS Michael Murphy, USS Frankie Peterson Jr., and the USS Spruance, which would write its name into history on April 19th. The 31st Marine Expeditionary Unit operates from the USS Tripoli. These are the Marines who landed on the Tuska. They are trained specifically for opposed boarding, meaning they go in even when crews resist. But the element that most analysts are calling the decisive one is something you cannot see from the surface. Task Force 59 and its AI-powered drone network. Unmanned surface vessels and AI tracking systems are now deployed throughout the Strait of Hormuz and the Gulf of Oman. These systems simultaneously read the acoustic signature, thermal image, and hull profile of every vessel passing through. Change your flag. The AI recognizes your propeller sound. Turn off your AIS transponder. You are automatically flagged the moment you enter a 5 nautical mile detection radius. The Gulf of Oman is no longer just a body of water. It is a digital trap. From above, FA-18 Super Hornets and F-35Cs fly from carrier decks. P-8 Poseidon aircraft track submarine signatures below the surface. MQ-4C Triton drones run continuous surveillance loops overhead. On April 18th, the most tracked aircraft category across Middle Eastern airspace was American aerial refueling tankers, working around the clock to keep this entire operation in the air, and in a detail that signals how far Washington is planning ahead. B-52 Stratofortress bombers are now part of the regional rotation. Here is why this matters beyond the military picture. Approximately 90% of the Iranian economy depends on maritime trade. Daily oil exports run between 1.5 and 2 million barrels. The majority flows through Hormuz to China. If the blockade reaches full capacity, between 80 and 90% of that revenue could be cut almost immediately. Defense economists estimate the short-term daily loss to Iran at between $300 and $500 million every single day. Fully loaded tankers are sitting idle right now at ports, including Karg Island, Bandar Abbas, and Chabahar. They are waiting. They have nowhere safe to go, but the blockade reaches beyond oil money. For years, confirmed by U.S. intelligence assessments and investigative reporting, Iran has used the same maritime routes to move ballistic missile components, drone engines, and weapons to its regional proxies, including the Houthis and Hezbollah. A boarding authority that can stop oil tankers does not just choke income. It cuts the supply chain feeding an entire regional military network. Sever these routes, and Iran's ability to supply its proxy forces across Yemen, Lebanon, Iraq, and Syria could collapse within months. This is why analysts are describing the strategic reach of this operation as far larger than a standard economic blockade. Washington is not simply trying to hurt Iran financially. It is trying to cut off an entire axis of power at its source. Stay with us on World Brief Daily. Subscribe now and hit the bell. We are publishing continuous coverage of every development in this story as it moves. It would be wrong to tell you this is one-sided. Iran has spent decades preparing for exactly this confrontation. The IRGC's doctrine is built on asymmetric disruption, not winning a straight fight, but making the cost of that fight unbearable. First layer, mines. Iran's naval mine stockpile is estimated to exceed 5,000 units, most magnetically triggered. In a narrow waterway, even a handful of deployed mines can reroute an entire carrier strike group. The U.S. has deployed unmanned underwater mine-sweeping vehicles, but even discovering a single mine can alter a destroyer's course for hours. Second layer, fast attack craft. Iran operates more than 180 fast attack boats, most carrying guided missiles or unguided rockets. Their doctrine is not to sink a destroyer. It is to flood its defensive radar with simultaneous attacks from multiple directions at once. Even a warship equipped with a close-in weapon system firing 4,500 rounds per minute faces a serious math problem against 30 independent simultaneous threats. Third layer, submarines. Iran operates more than 20 Ghadir-class submarines, small shallow-water vessels designed to evade conventional sonar and set torpedo ambushes in coastal approaches. Fourth layer, drones. Iran's Shahed 136 costs approximately $20,000 to build. The SM-2 missile used to shoot it down cost close to $2 million. In a sustained swarm attack, the economics favor the attacker. The Pentagon has now quietly positioned laser-based close defense systems in the Gulf to address exactly this threat. Fifth layer, coastal missiles. Mobile anti-ship missile batteries are pre-positioned along Iran's coastline in mountain passes and cave entrances. These systems can strike targets more than 200 kilometers away and relocate within seconds of firing. Washington has built a counter to each of these threats, but this confrontation is still genuinely dangerous. That needs to be said clearly. While all of this was unfolding on water, something equally critical was happening on land. 2 U.S. Air Force C-17 transport aircraft landed at Noor Khan Air Base outside Islamabad on the morning of April 19th. Roads were sealed. The Serena and Marriott hotels evacuated all guests. Security cordons went up across Rawalpindi and Islamabad. This was the second round of U.S.-Iran talks brokered by Pakistan. The first round, held April 11th in the same city, ended without agreement. The Iranian delegation had described those talks as the most intensive direct engagement between the two countries in 47 years. They reported progress, but said the two sides remained far apart on Iran's uranium enrichment stockpile and the permanent reopening of the Strait of Hormuz. Then the Tuska seizure happened. Iran announced it had no intention of sending its delegation to the Monday talks. Iran's first vice president, Mohammad Reza Arif, delivered Tehran's position directly: either a free oil market for all or the risk of high costs for everyone. Oil markets did not miss it. Brent crude jumped approximately 7% to nearly $97 a barrel. U.S. crude rose to around $90. Analysts warned prices could stay elevated well into 2026, not just because of the blockade, but because even if a deal is reached, Iran's damaged export infrastructure would need months to recover. Then Donald Trump spoke. From his Truth Social account, in the hours surrounding the Tuska operation, "We propose a very fair deal. If they refuse, the United States will destroy all of Iran's power plants and bridges. There will be no more nice guys." That is not diplomatic language. That is a final offer. Step back and look at what Washington has actually built here. The Tuska seizure was not an improvised decision made in the heat of the moment. It was the first visible result of a campaign planned weeks in advance, prepositioned, rehearsed, and executed on cue. CENTCOM releasing that footage to every screen on Earth within minutes was deliberate. Washington wanted Tehran to see it. It wanted Beijing, which depends on Iranian oil through Hormuz, to see it. It wanted every IRGC fast boat captain to see it, and the net is wider than the Gulf. Iranian shadow tanker networks have for years moved crude through alternative routes, transshipping through Southeast Asian ports, switching flags at sea, falsifying documents. Washington is closing all of those routes at the same time. Coordination between CENTCOM and U.S. Indo-Pacific Command means Iranian-linked vessels can be tracked and intercepted in the Indian Ocean, the Strait of Malacca, and the South China Sea. There is no geographic exit from this tracking system. The AI already knows your ship's acoustic fingerprint. Changing the flag changes nothing. Iran now faces three simultaneous pressures: a military blockade it cannot break without catastrophic escalation, an economic squeeze accelerating toward crisis, and a diplomatic process with a hard deadline. The ceasefire expires Wednesday. The question is no longer whether Iran's leverage has been reduced. It clearly has. The question is whether Tehran's leadership calculates it still has enough to extract real concessions at the table, or whether hardliners decide that walking away is better than what they see as surrender. What happens in the next 72 hours will answer that question. The Strait of Hormuz is 33 kilometers wide. Right now, it is the most important 33 kilometers on Earth. World Brief Daily will be here for every development: the ceasefire deadline, the Islamabad talks, and whatever happens next in the Gulf. If you are not subscribed yet, do it now. Hit the notification bell, because in a story moving this fast, being one day late means missing everything. We will see you in the next one.